The college football playoff gets underway here on New Year's Day, and the granddaddy of them all kicks things off in the first national semifinal. Alabama and Michigan from Pasadena in the San Gabriel Mountains. Michigan opened up as a 2.5-point favorite, but we've seen Alabama money now down to 1.5 and a total in the mid-40s. All right, so we've talked about how to enjoy the game. How about enjoy the game with a little action? We have Tom Fornelli and Emory Hunt here, and we'll get to both college football playoff games, but we do start at the one in Southern California, the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, 2 p.m. local time. So I mentioned the spread. When this game opened up, it was 2.5 Michigan. There has been some Bama money currently sitting at 1.5. Tom, I'll start with you. What's going to be the play for you in this one, and what are you looking out for?
Yeah, this is a very interesting matchup in that I feel like the public perception of the game for the most part is, oh, Alabama's going to blow Michigan out because it's Alabama and Michigan is yet to win a college football playoff game. But like you mentioned, Tommy, the line opened at 2.5 a long time ago and it moved to 1.5, but it's been sitting there the entire time. For whatever reason, the big gamblers, the models, they are not moving off of Michigan here, but I'm on Alabama. It's just, for me, I look at this Michigan defense and it truly has been one of the most dominant units in the country. And whether you're looking at traditional stats or you're using the fancy opponent adjusted ones, they all tell you the same thing. But the one thing that Michigan hasn't faced to this point is a quarterback like Jalen Milroe. You can argue that the most dynamic QB they've seen is Rutgers' Gavin Wimsatt, who's an excellent runner, but he doesn't really present much as far as a passer, unlike Jalen Milroe. So this will be a unique test for the Wolverines in that regard. And I feel like this game, ultimately, it's a 1.5-point spread because that's how evenly matched these teams are. But just, common sense tells me it's Alabama in a playoff game catching points. I'll take the points with Alabama.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, when you think about the week leading up to this game. I want to say middle of the week, we saw a lot of rain in consecutive days at the Rose Bowl. Tony lied to me. I thought it never rained in Southern California, but maybe that slows down this explosive Alabama offense. But, Tom is right. This is the ultimate who's the X factor game, and that's Jalen Milroe. He's the +1. And when you have a team that lives and dies by the explosive play, I think you kind of lean that way in a playoff game, because when you boil it down, you think about Michigan's toned way to success is how they want to run the ball, drain the clock, play good defense. Sounds a lot like Alabama did during that Eddie Lacy run when they were just playing teams. Hey, we're bigger than you up front. We're going to run downhill. We're going to play great defense within our front seven. It's the best corners that Michigan's going to face. This is a team that has the +1 at quarterback in Milroe. So I like Bama here to take this one.
Yeah, you guys mentioned the line movement, and so did I. A lot of people thought as we got to New Year's Day that this number may have gotten to a pick'em or even crossed a line with Alabama. If anything, actually, I'm seeing some 2s out there. So don't be surprised if somehow Michigan actually ends up a bigger favorite than the 1.5 at kickoff. All right, let's get to the Sugar Bowl, where our friend Chip Patterson is at right now. We've seen some recent live movement in this one, 4.5 for most of the week and most of the weeks leading up to this game. Now down to 3.5, and the total also ticking down to about 61.5 or 62.5. So, Emory, I'm going to give you first word here on the Sugar with Texas and UW. What's the play for you?
I feel like if we take away all the perimeter action, all the explosive talent we'll see here at running back, at receiver, even at quarterback, the dynamic play, football is still a game of blocking and tackling. And if you boil it down to the line of scrimmage, I feel like that's where Texas has the advantage on both sides of the ball, especially on the defensive interior. That interior pressure, crowding the line of scrimmage, forcing Michael Penix Jr. to play the game strictly from the pocket. Now, he's not the runner or the scrambling threat that we've seen from other quarterbacks. Even Quinn Ewers is someone that's able to get outside the pocket and create in an aspect. Not Michael Penix. He's a guy that want to get the ball out on time, does a great job working touchdown to check down with his accuracy deeper down the field. But without that ability to step up in the pocket in the way Texas can control both sides of the line of scrimmage, we saw them do that against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. I think that's going to be the reason why they win this ball game. So lay these points. Now that it's at a greater number than 4.5, 3.5 to me sounds a lot better. I'm going to lay the points with Texas.
I love the fact that the total's coming down because I'm on the over. So go ahead, keep knocking that thing down so it becomes easier for me to win this bet. I look at this matchup. Emory, you mentioned it's been raining in Pasadena all week, which could impact the turf. Not a problem at the Sugar Bowl. We're indoors, Superdome, on a fast track. These are two offenses that, with Steve Sarkisian for Texas and Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb on Washington, you give those guys a month to prepare for an opponent. They're some of the best play callers in the sport as it is. You give them all this time to get ready, you know they are going to cook some things up. I think both of these teams are going to lean into what they do best, and we are going to see a lot of big plays and a lot of points put on the board. I love the Texas defense. I love that Texas defensive line, but I've seen it too many times in these games. Elite offense overcomes elite defense. I think we're going to see a lot of that in this one. This is going to be a really fun way to end the evening. It's going to be a high-scoring shootout. Take the over.
It's interesting, too. There's familiarity in this bowl game. Both teams matching up in the Alamo last year, again, in a fast-track indoor-type setting. All right, so those are the national semifinals and how to bet the game against the spread or total. Now, if we're talking futures, obviously there's 4 teams. There's not a ton of value, but we do get to hit the reset button here with Michigan 2-1. Bama right behind them, 20 cents better. Texas, and then Washington plus 650. You know, the only person that I've seen among our CBS colleagues, Danny Cannell's the only one that's picked Michigan. And we all know that DK sometimes can do it purely out of being a contrarian. He will not be joined by Emory or Tom today. Fornelli, take us through. If it's not Michigan, who is it?
Oh, I wonder if there's a reason why Danny won't pick Alabama to win the national title. Let me think about that one for a minute. No, I'm taking Alabama. It's fatalistic, I know, but it's just I feel like the way that this entire thing has played out with Alabama getting into the college football playoff, controversially to many, the only way it could reasonably end is by Alabama beating Texas in the title game, therefore completely eliminating the fact that it lost to Texas by 10 points at home during the season. So give me the Tide. They're a very good team, and that's pretty good value on them.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. I'm taking a Tide here. And when you think about, although I will say this, got to give Texas credit, because if you go back to last year, if Quinn Ewers doesn't get injured, they probably blow out Alabama. This year, they actually beat Alabama. So if there's one team going into a title game, which I envision those two teams to make it, that's not afraid of the Alabama effect or the Alabama mystique, it's the Texas Longhorns. However, this game is different than the last game they played against Alabama, because Jalen Milroe is a much better player than he was then. And so now when you factor that in, and I like how focused he is in terms of playing a position and trying to prove that this is what I do. This is not, I'm not doing this because I'm an athlete. I'm doing this because I'm a quarterback. I just like that mindset. I like that frame of thinking. I like that aggressiveness that he's going to play with in this ball game. So therefore, I like Alabama to win in a mythical national championship game against Texas.
Before we hit a break, Tom, do you also lean Texas in terms of winning the game against Washington?
Yeah, I just think that they are the more complete team. So in that game, it's somewhat of a coin flip, but I think Texas wins it more often than not.
Okay,
yes.
Then under that thought, real quickly here, Emory, then Tom, if Alabama, Texas, the rematch in Houston for the Natty on a neutral, what would you think the spread would be?
3 points.
To who?
3.5, Alabama.
Okay. So plus 220 looks pretty good if you're going to play the futures, if you think Bama's going to win both of those games and getting a little more than 2-1. All right, Emory, Tom, certainly appreciate it. Let's recap the fellas' selections. Taking Bama and the points in the Rose Bowl. Tom really likes the over in the Sugar. Emory's going to lay the field goal in a hook with the Longhorns, and then both favoring the Crimson Tide to win the national championship in the futures market plus 2.